This is AIM Agenda. Thanks for your company this morning. Joining me now from Melbourne, Liberal frontbencher Senator Mitch Fifield, and from Adelaide, Labor MP Nick Champion. Gentlemen, good to see you, Nick. I want to ask you, are you comfortable with the Prime Minister's judgment on and the way she's managed the Slipper and Thompson issues over the weekend?
Well, of course. I mean, the Prime Minister's returned from Turkey, returned from Anzac Day to Australia, made a decision. That decision's pretty strong, it's pretty clear. And I think it does the right thing by the Parliament and the right thing by the Australian Labor Party. So I have absolutely no questions about the Prime Minister's judgment. I think she's acted, as she always acts, in the national interest and decisively.
You don't think she should have done it sooner?
Well, look, I think Tomo in his press conference himself said, well, with the benefit of hindsight, you know, he might have done it sooner or someone might have initiated it sooner. I don't think anybody has 2020 vision. I don't think anybody can see into the future, and so I think hindsight's always one of those things. You know, you'll always have second guesses out there and professional armchair critics. So that's what journalism's always about. What we have is a Prime Minister who's acted decisively to protect the reputation of the Parliament and the reputation of the Australian Labor Party. I think she should be applauded for it.
Well, action has now been taken, Senator Fifield, and Craig Emerson, you heard him arguing passionately that there are precedents within coalition ranks where people have faced criminal investigations and yet stayed in the Parliament and voted with the coalition. So isn't it now a bit rich for the coalition to be saying Craig Thompson shouldn't even be allowed to vote in the Parliament?
Look, these are hardly comparable circumstances. This government, for the best part of 4 years, has taken no action to address the allegations against Craig Thompson. This Prime Minister, despite Fair Work Australia working at a glacial pace, has not at any stage sought to progress the inquiries into Craig Thompson. She contended time and again that no action was necessary, that she had full confidence in Craig Thompson, and then all of a sudden we have the Prime Minister saying that a line has been crossed. She can't tell us what that line is, where it is, or how it's been crossed. She is trying to give the illusion that she's taken action. I know Nick said that she's taken decisive action, but she's actually done nothing. She says that he will not be part of the Labor Party, that his membership has been suspended. He hasn't been expelled from the Labor Party. He hasn't resigned from the Labor Party. He's been suspended. I don't know what that means. But we do know he sees himself as a Labor man, that he will continue to caucus with the Labor Party by voting with the Labor Party. The only thing that's happening here is that he won't physically attend caucus meetings. This is a con and a sham. It reminds me of, you know, the old World Championship Wrestling. Julia Gillard has said to Craig Thompson, look, I'm going to throw a punch, you take a dive, tap the mat, and hopefully everyone will think that we've done something real. This is a con and a sham. She has done nothing.
Nick Champion, the Prime Minister has said that the Slipper and Thompson scandals combined have created a lack of respect for the Parliament, that a line had been crossed. It didn't sound too convincing, to be honest, yesterday when she made that argument or that statement, because really nothing had changed in either case. It seems more about political expediency.
Oh, look, I don't think that's the case. I think, you know, Prime Ministers have an intuition about what the Australian people think. They need to have that intuition to become Prime Minister. I think Julia Gillard made a decision on a return from Turkey, from the Anzac Day commemorations over there, that really a line had to be drawn under both these sagas. She's done that. She's protected the Parliament. She's protected the Australian Labor Party. And hopefully,
you hit the nail on the head there.
well, no.
Protected
Well,
the Australian Labor Party.
Well,
that's what this is all
Mitch,
about.
Mitch,
I didn't that something's been done.
Well, Mitch, I didn't interrupt your, you know, constant assertions that the Prime Minister should have interfered in Fair Work Australia and interfered in other independent investigations,
which
you know is wrong.
Which
you know is wrong.
That's not interfering to ask them to do
well,
their
actually,
job.
it is. That's the very definition of interference in
no, it's not.
independent authorities.
To ask
it is
a
the very
competent
definition
agency
of
to do their job,
interference.
Can we please leave Nick to answer, and then I'll come back to Mitch. Our viewers get increasingly as frustrated as I am. Let's just stick to it. Nick, your answer.
Well, Mitch's intervention. What was the question again? I've forgotten it, given Mitch's
the point is, I suppose, well, let's go back to the bottom line in this. Michelle Grattan writes about this in The Age today. that the Prime Minister, she believes, has to fall on her sword, that it's got to the point where no one's listening to her and doesn't have any credibility in the electorate, and you have to make a change. I know you backed Kevin Rudd last time. Surely there must be some sense now that you've got to take another look at the leadership question.
Look, the caucus made a decision, and I abide by it 100%. I don't think there's any appetite to revisit that decision. We've made it, and basically we've got to get on with the process of government. And look, if you look at the fundamentals, we're about to deliver a budget surplus. Inflation's low, unemployment's low. There's plenty of room now to cut interest rates. Interest rates are lower than they were under the coalition. So the economic fundamentals of this country are extraordinary, particularly given the state of the rest of the world. And I think it might just be better for everybody to maybe focus on those things and focus on those challenges. How are we going to deal with the problems of Europe and America and increasingly, I think, some of the issues around a carbon-constrained world? We'd be much better off, all of us, looking at the policy issues that face us rather than these constant sagas. And I think what the Prime Minister's action yesterday does is to draw a line under both those things, to exclude Craig from the caucus, which is pretty much the worst thing that can happen to a Labor man. I think it's the most, extreme thing that can happen to a Labor person, to be excluded from the forums of the party. I think it draws a line under both those things. It allows the independent investigations to go on, and we should really just get back to dealing with the issues that ordinary people want, because I can tell you, I went to the footy in Gawler on Saturday and not one person raised Craig Thompson or Peter Slipper with me.
Okay, well, Senator Fifield, these issues, they do... Well, these issues, or scandals, however you want to describe them, they don't reflect well on any party, particularly when you think that Peter Slipper was for decades a member of your party. It just reflects badly on the... You must agree with the Prime Minister on that, on the Parliament more generally, and you've got to... The coalition take some ownership of Peter Slipper.
Well, if there were things that happened which warrant investigation from earlier in Peter Slipper's career, then of course that should happen. But there are a couple of pretty self-evident points here. One is Peter Slipper is not a member of the Liberal Party of Australia. The other is that the Australian Labor Party nominated and supported Peter Slipper to be Speaker. That's not something we ever did. We never put Peter Slipper in the most senior position in the Australian Parliament. The Labor Party did. They must have had confidence in him. This is the speakership that the Australian Labor Party own. And we had Craig Emerson a few days ago and Anthony Albanese saying that the release of cab charge dockets by Peter Slipper effectively cleared him and that he should resume the chair. Then all of a sudden we have the Prime Minister again saying, where she previously had contended that Peter Slipper had her confidence, that he had to stand aside and stay stood aside. We think that was the right call, but why didn't she make it weeks ago? And I think the reason is one that Nick actually alluded to before when he said that the Prime Minister has acted to protect the Australian Labor Party. That's what this is about. It's not motivated by concerns of the reputation of the Parliament or the integrity of the Parliament. It's in order to protect the Australian Labor Party. And Greg Combay also this morning said that the purpose of the Prime Minister's decision in both cases was to give the government clear air. Not the integrity considerations which the Prime Minister was putting forward. And again, we don't know what has changed. We don't know what line has been crossed. Craig Emerson tried to explain it this morning.
Okay.
He said that there was a convergence of perceptions. I don't know what that means. The Prime Minister needs to explain.
About one last issue before we go. We're going to run out of time, and this is a very important issue to many Australians. The every Australian counts rallies today at midday around the country, in all the capital cities. This is supporting the National Disability Insurance Scheme. As I say, rallies in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth and Hobart. Senator Fifield, you'll be attending the Melbourne rally at midday in Federation Square.
I will. It's great that the Every Australian Counts campaign is having rallies around Australia. I'll be there speaking. making clear that the Coalition supports a national disability insurance scheme. It's an idea whose time has come. People with disability need it. I expect that there will be money in this budget for an NDIS. I hope there is, and if there is, we'll support it. The time is now. The time has come to make an NDIS a reality, and I would encourage everyone who has the time at noon, jump on the NDIS website, Every Australia Counts, see where your local rally is, get along, show your support.
Okay, Nick Champion, quickly, I guess that you'll be... There's bipartisanship on that front at least.
Oh, well, look, this is something that the Prime Minister has championed and she has advanced. It's an issue that's dear to Labor's heart, and it's exactly the sort of issue we would prefer the Parliament to be discussing rather than the constant sort of shallowness of the opposition's agenda. So it's exactly the sort of thing that we should have spent this morning talking about, these sorts of policies, disabilities, aged care reform and other things that are important to Australian families.
Nick and Senator Fifield, thanks for your time. And if you do want details on that, you can find it on everyaustraliancounts.com.au is the website, everyaustraliancounts.com.au. And for details on the rallies, you can find on that website. Also, if you can't make it to one of those rallies, you can express support for the NDIS via that website. There is a way to do that, to join the campaign, at least to put your name to it and back it on that website. So that's all we've got time for this morning. Good to end it, at least on some bipartisanship after a fiery discussion this morning here on AIM Agenda. We'll see you next time.